Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Shabbat. We are up to Perik Yud Gimel, Mishnah Daled. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbai, ben Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden, Amen. The Mishnah begins, Shiur Hamlaben, Vamnapetz, Vatzovea, Vatove, Kimlo Rocha, Vasit Kaful. The measurement for the melachot of washing, disentangling, dyeing, and spinning is double the full width of a sit, meaning one is not liable for doing any of these melachot unless the amount of wool involved is at least enough to produce a thread whose length is twice a sit. Now the Mefarshim explain, one sit is the distance between the tip of the index finger and the tip of the middle finger when they are spread apart. So twice this length is a double sit, which is the minimum measurement for these melachot. Now a double sit is also a distance between the thumb and the index finger when they are spread apart. Now only a thread at least as long as a double sit is useful in sewing. So therefore when preparing wool or other material to make threads for sewing, there must be enough of it to produce a thread of this length. And the measurement for the melacha of weaving two threads is the full width of a sit, meaning one is not liable for weaving two threads unless one passes the weft thread twice through at least one sit of the warp. Now, the Mefarshim explain, in the first Mishnah of this chapter, we learned that a person who passes the weft thread through the warp two times is liable for weaving. That's the definition of weaving two threads. This Mishnah teaches that even if each pass of the weft thread does not go through the entire width of the warp, but only through one sit of its width, he would still be liable. And that is the end of Mishnah Dal. Mishnah He now discusses the melacha of trapping. Rabbi Yehuda says, Hatzad tzipor lemigdal utzvi lebayit hayav. One who traps a bird by chasing it into a closet, or traps a deer by chasing it into a house, is liable for trapping, because a bird cannot escape from a closet and a deer cannot escape from a house. And the Mefarshim explain that the Mishnah is talking about a case where he locked the door, meaning he closed it securely so that the deer cannot escape. Now, although our Mishnah apparently speaks of a case where one chased the deer into the house or the bird into the closet, the next Mishnah teaches that one is liable even if it wandered into the house on its own and he merely locked the door, trapping the animal inside. Now, a bird is considered trapped only in a closet, but not in a house, and Mefarshim explain, because it can fly out of a window. An animal, by contrast, is considered trapped in a house, and certainly in a closet. However, even an animal is not trapped inside an enclosure that lacks a roof, such as a garden, courtyard, or pen, because it can escape from an unenclosed, unroofed enclosure by jumping over the fence, for example. But the sages say, tzipor lemigdal. In the case of a bird, it's true that one is not liable unless he chases it into the closet and not a house, like Rabbi Yehuda said. But in the case of a deer, one is liable even for chasing it into a garden, courtyard, pen, or other unroofed enclosure, because according to the sages, a deer is considered trapped even in these places. Now, although a deer could escape from an unroofed enclosure, it's unlikely to do so, and therefore the sages deem a deer trapped in an unroofed enclosure, such as a garden, courtyard, or pen, a significant trapping, and he would be liable. Now, although the sages said that one is liable for chasing a deer into a pen or other unroofed enclosure, their ruling does not apply to every type of pen. But before we continue, just to point out, the following case in the Mishnah. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Lo chol bevarin shavin. Not all pens, not all unroofed enclosures are the same. Ze klal, this is the rule. Mechusar tzeda patur. If a person chases an animal into a pen where it still lacks trapping, meaning even after the animal's in the pen, seizing it is difficult, he is exempt because it's not considered trapped in such a pen. So for example, let's say the pen is so large that he cannot just pounce on the animal, but he has to run after it. In that case, even if it's impossible for the animal to escape from the pen, it's not considered trapped. But if he chases it into a pen where it does not lack further trapping, meaning he could seize it there easily, he is liable because that suffices for it to be viewed as trapped. And the Rav, this is what I wanted to point out. The Rav says, "V'alacha Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel." The halacha follows Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. The mefarish the Rabbanan, because he's not arguing with the sages, he is explaining the opinion of the sages, and that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.